How's it going, YouTube? A long time no see. So currently I'm on the road. We are in nature. Perfect because it's currently week 2 of the block. It's relaxing. You want to have chill sessions. You don't want to beat your training to the ground every single week. Sweater, pretty cool hoodie, retro 80s look t-shirt. This is Canada, We Canadians have forests everywhere, and if you come to Canada, you have to see green. That's what it is. Just kidding, we have cities, but this is a rural area. We were getting ready for the gym. All young LA, of course. Extra large, wide anime baggy pants. I'm actually wearing a medium. I usually wear like a large or an XL, but I swear there's some size inflation happening on, or I'm just getting smaller. Because these mediums, they used to be very short. Maybe because it's the style, like the very wide cuff at the end, but I'll just show you. So these pants, they're not even mine. These are Jess's pants, and they're a medium. Hello, Jess.
Hello.
Ed Hardy 4000s. Looks like they took a page out of 2012. Tight clothing pieces are out, baggy ones are in. It's taking some time to adjust to the new styles. The one thing that kind of like grinds my gears is when my pants touch the floor. Now this is my full body warm up that I do when I squat or deadlift. It's like the leg swings, kickbacks, and then some of these reach overs. What I try to do is stretch the lower back. If I feel any tweaks, I'll feel it on this versus feeling it during my deadlifts. The main reason I started spending more time on bodyweight warm-ups is because it speeds up the actual warm-ups for the movement that I'm doing, especially on the deadlift. I found that I can get to my top set a lot quicker without having to do as many warm-up sets. Maybe it's just because I'm getting a little bit older, but significantly dropped my risk of injury by doing so. And that's coming from someone that used to never warm up in the early 20s. I do my mobility post-workout, but warm-up wise, I wouldn't do much. So late teens, early 20s, definitely give it a go to do a full body warm-up. It won't take more time because you'll be spending less time actually warming up with the barbell. Now, speaking about this specific session, it was a little bit of an epic fail. So it's my top set, 635 for a double at RP7, but because I had the unfortunate case of lactose in the form of cheese curds, my stomach was super bloated, and I had a 2-hour window to train. I had a 2-hour window before training, and the belt was just not fitting right. I had to go beltless in this set because I felt like I was going to puke. Now, if you're lactose intolerant like me, it's not just constant burping, it's constant farting. So you're going to feel like you're going to push gas from both ends, and training's extremely uncomfortable. After close grip bench, I was like, I'm not going to train. There is no point because I do not feel well. My stomach is what's the main focus, not the weight. And when your training focus is completely off, you're focused on not farting or shitting yourself, then you're going to have problems where you lose focus and then you end up with a worse injury like a pec tear, bicep tear, back pain, strain, all the bad shit that would happen if you're just locked in a little bit. This was my top set on the close grip bench, 305 for triple. I had to lock in. I had to focus in and not let my stomach pain dictate how I was feeling. So move decent. And then the back downs, they took way longer than usual. You're just going to see the sets without the rest. But for all in all, it took about an hour and 20 minutes to do my deadlifts and bench. So because I didn't do my shoulder day that I was supposed to do the other session, I decided to film the day after, which is this tempo high bar squat with 445 and quads. I decided to merge both days. I was supposed to do shoulders and arms, so I just decided to omit the arms and omit 1 or 2 leg accessories, so keeping it very minimal. Now, with this high bar squat, what I'm trying to do is stay as upright as possible. I use a cue to look up the ceiling, and you're going to have some hinge, especially if you have long femurs like myself, but as you come out of the hole, think about showing the groin, press that groin through essentially. It's kind of a weird cue, but it works pretty well because you want to pop the knees forward and let them take over so that the quads are working a little bit harder. After the tempo squats, it's shoulder press, but this gym, I don't have heavy enough dumbbells to use, so I had to go with the safety military press setup, which honestly it's a little bit easier than the dumbbells because you don't have to chuck up like 100-pound dumbbell plus on your shoulders, and they don't have it at this gym, so it's not a huge requirement in my training, so I just opted for this. But to be honest, because I didn't know how strong I was or how much to push it, I think I went a little too ham. I didn't leave much in reserve, especially on this last grindy rep, like an RP 10 rep. And so as you see in the next set, I went a little bit further from failure, maybe like an RP9. Again, it was probably harder than what it should have been, but the temptation to push it was just there. I went from 1 plate to 2 plate, and I was like, you know what, I can't resist. It feels good to train hard sometimes. And when you have a lot of caffeine in your system, you have some music bopping, you get in the zone, and you're like, oh, it's RP6, and then it looks like that. So because I coach myself, one thing I noticed is that I definitely overshoot my training too much. Well, maybe not enough my leg days, but definitely my shoulder press days. And it tends to have effect on my performance and recovery for following days and other movements. So just because you didn't overshoot on this exercise or that exercise, but you overshot in your program, it still has long-lasting effects on your recovery. And if you are periodizing your training, you want to make sure that everything in your program makes sense so that you could perform better on the weeks you're supposed to perform and take a foot off the pedal approach when you don't really need it. Now, it's going to depend on what your goal is for hypertrophy focus, and maybe you want to get close to failure every session. But if you want to have a little bit of strength focus in your training phase, then, take it easier on some weeks. You have to if you want to get to that next level. Now, we're doing these adductors, Magnus, squeezes, RP8, could probably do a little bit more, but these movements are pretty good because they're kind of like a mobility exercise at the same time when you get the stretch. Just be a little bit careful because if you load too heavy and you pop something, you'll be out of commission for a good while. It's definitely a perfect RP. The rest of the workout was pretty good in terms of RP, not too much, too exhausting, too failure, because now I'm treating all my accessories like RP7-ish, just so I could build some momentum at the moment and feel good in my training. Strength is peaking again. Instead of blowing your strength wad early on by just going heavy on everything, because you're starting to feel stronger on your lifts, this urge to do that, please. Everything in training is momentum related, even from a confidence standpoint. Don't let social media, watching people PR in their training, or watching people look a certain way train to failure every single week, pull you in a direction that you should do the same, because you don't know their history. You don't know if they're just starting out of the gym, they can tolerate training failure, they're on PEDs, they might be more or less advanced compared to you. And a lot of fitness advice is catered for people that want to gain a little bit of muscle and are within the 1 to 2 year range. Heck, even my content and advice I'm giving to you might not be applicable, but you can still listen with open ears. So I'm hoping in about 2 to 3 months, I'll eventually be able to train at a powerlifting gym. Hopefully one with a good mix of accessories and good quality machines. Oftentimes powerlifting gyms just have the bare minimum for SBD, but no solid machines. Because at the moment, the bendy bars, when you're squatting, is just increased risk of injury for zero gain. But the machines are nice here, and I get access to many of these Anytime Fitness gym locations for a decent price. Some of the gyms even have stiff bars, but not having dumbbells over 100 pounds is definitely a huge drawback. And to be honest, the majority of the population isn't going to use them. It's just these meatheads like me and a couple outlier lifters. But getting back to these leg extensions, I'm doing this the WEASLEY Visitor style vintage bodybuilding. Pretty much what he recommends is to sit forward a little bit at the peak contraction while trying to hold it, and to get that stretch at the bottom the pretty standard way. I've been watching a lot of his content recently because I find it pretty interesting, his come up against Chris Bumstead. I don't want Chris to get dethroned, but when he does retire, it looks like Wesley will be the champion eventually. But also, Wesley's just such a humble and nice guy, similar to C-Bum. Now, one day I hope to be a legend like that, in the powerlifting realm. Not to be at the top right away or necessarily ever, just to be around the top and to have a long powerlifting career and still enjoy training. Because a lot of people get to the top, but they don't enjoy the process or the journey. And I felt like I got to that point with my powerlifting career because I was just trying to chase numbers. But to get there and to enjoy the process, there is absolutely no losing. In anything you do, you have to enjoy the process. You also have to be hungry enough so it's worth doing. I'm doing it to prove myself that I could do it while looking aesthetic and feel good on a day-to-day level, and to test myself so I don't become like one of those influencers who have little goals to chase.